The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days in Vienna. Gray clouds hung low over the rooftops, and the scent of wet cobblestone drifted through narrow streets. In a small apartment above an antique bookstore, Elena Moritz, 27, pressed her forehead against the cool glass window and watched the world blur in raindrops. Her sketchbook lay open on the table beside her. A drawing of a little boy playing under an umbrella, half finished, watercolored with shades of melancholy. She hadn't touched it since yesterday, since the message. "Your rent is overdue again, Ms. Moritz." Final reminder. Her chest tightened. She pressed her hand against it and exhaled slowly. The sound of the rain filled the silence of her apartment, her only company these days. Once, Elena had been full of light. She painted on café walls, designed covers for poets, and filled the city with color. But after the accident, after her younger brother Leon died on that icy road, her art felt hollow. She moved through days like someone trying to remember how to breathe. The doorbell rang. She startled slightly, pulled her cardigan tighter, and opened the door. A man stood there, tall, drenched from the rain, holding a small black umbrella that looked ready to collapse. His brown hair stuck to his forehead, and his navy coat shimmered with rain. "Sorry," he said, his voice deep but gentle. "Does this building still rent studios for artists?" Elena blinked. "It used to. I live in one." He smiled faintly. "Then maybe I'm in luck." He extended a hand. "I'm Adrian Vale." She hesitated before shaking it. "Elena Moritz." He looked around the stairwell, then back at her. "You don't happen to know if there's a space left?" "There might be one next door. The owner lives out of town. I can give you her number." He nodded gratefully. "You'd save me a storm of trouble." The way he said it made her smile. A small, almost forgotten curve of her lips. She scribbled a number on a piece of paper and handed it to him. As he turned to go, he looked over his shoulder. "You're an artist, right?" She glanced at the paint stains on her fingers. "Trying to be." He gave a quiet laugh. "Then maybe I'll see your work around." She didn't know then that she would. That his path would tangle so deeply with hers that neither would walk away unchanged. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. Through the rain, she heard faint music coming from the next room. A piano, soft and hesitant, like someone relearning an old melody. It drifted through the thin walls, threading into her dreams. The next morning, she met him again on the staircase. He wore a gray sweater, sleeves rolled to his elbows, eyes warm but tired. "Sorry about last night," he said. "Didn't mean to disturb you." "You play beautifully," she replied. He smiled. "The kind that hides sadness behind charm." "Thanks. Haven't played in years." As weeks passed, the rain became a rhythm in their lives. He'd bring her coffee from the corner cafe. She'd lend him her old heater when his broke. Slowly, between raindrops and shared silences, friendship bloomed, fragile, unspoken. One afternoon, she saw him sitting by the riverbank sketching the bridge. His lines were clean, architectural, and sure. She approached quietly. "You draw?" she asked. He looked up, almost embarrassed. "I used to. Before." He stopped. "Before life got complicated." Elena sat beside him. "It has a way of doing that." He turned to her, studying her face. "What about you? You look like someone who paints rain." She laughed softly. "Rain doesn't judge. People do." For the first time in months, she felt seen, not as the broken girl who lost her brother, but as someone who still had color left inside. That night, they talked for hours. About music. About loss, about the strange beauty of surviving things you thought would destroy you. When she told him about Leon, he didn't try to comfort her with empty words. He just listened. And when she fell silent, he said quietly, "You don't move on from pain like that. You move with it." His words stayed with her long after he left. Weeks later, Elena got a letter she didn't expect. An invitation to showcase her work at the Vienna Autumn Art Fair. Something she'd dreamed of for years. But the excitement faded when she realized she had only 1 month, and no money for supplies. When Adrian heard, he didn't hesitate. "I'll help," he said. "I've got savings. Or at least something close." She shook her head. "No. I can't take your money." "It's not money," he said. "It's belief." That night, for the first time since Leon's death, Elena painted. And she didn't stop until dawn. Her canvases came alive, storms of color, faces lost in rain, hands reaching toward light. And every time she felt she couldn't go on, Adrian was there, quietly. Bringing tea, adjusting the lamps, or just sitting near the window, sketching while she painted. But behind his calm eyes, something stirred, a shadow she couldn't see. The night before the exhibition, Elena found him outside, smoking under the streetlight, something he rarely did. "You look miles away," she said softly. He exhaled slowly, watching the smoke dissolve. Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life? She frowned. What do you mean? He looked at her for a long time before answering. There's something I haven't told you. Her chest tightened. What is it? He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it. After the fair, he said. I promise. She nodded, uneasy but trusting. The art fair was rain-soaked but dazzling. Elena's corner glowed with her paintings, especially one titled Under the Same Rain. It showed two figures walking apart under a shared umbrella, their faces hidden, the distance between them alive with color. People stopped. Some cried. Some bought. And when she looked around, Adrian was gone. She found him hours later, at the edge of the crowd, watching quietly. He smiled faintly, pride and sorrow mixing in his eyes. You did it, he said. She laughed through tears. We did it. He nodded. Elena, there's something you need to know. But before he could speak, he collapsed. Elena froze. The noise of the fair dissolved into silence. People rushed past. Voices rising, but all she could see was Adrian. His body limp on the cold marble floor, rainwater seeping through the open door, his hand twitching as if still reaching for her. Adrian, she screamed, kneeling beside him. His face was pale, his lips faintly blue. Someone called for an ambulance. Someone else cleared space. Elena pressed his hand against her chest, whispering, Stay with me please, just stay. His eyelids fluttered. Lena, I'm here. Yo, you made it, he whispered, a ghost of a smile trembling on his lips. Then his eyes closed. At St. Joseph's Hospital, the white lights buzzed above her as she sat in the hallway, rain dripping from her coat. Her hands trembled around the paper cup of coffee she hadn't touched. The doctor came out. A woman in her 50s with kind but tired eyes. Are you family? Elena hesitated. I'm a friend. The doctor nodded. Mr. Vale has a heart condition. He's been living with it for years. But his tests show he hasn't been taking his medication. Elena blinked, stunned. Why not? The doctor sighed. Maybe he couldn't afford it. Maybe he stopped caring. It's hard to say. She felt her throat tighten. Will he be okay? He's stable for now. But his heart is weak. He'll need care and rest. Elena nodded numb. That night, she sat beside his bed, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. His skin looked pale under the hospital light, veins like faint rivers beneath the surface. She brushed a lock of hair from his forehead and whispered. You said you'd tell me after the fair. He didn't stir. But a tear slipped from the corner of his eye. Days passed. Rain still tapped against the hospital windows. Adrian woke slowly, his eyes tired but soft. You're still here, he murmured. Where else would I go, she said, smiling faintly. He tried to sit up, grimacing. You shouldn't waste time on me, she frowned. Don't say that. I mean it. You've got your whole life ahead, Elena. Don't anchor yourself to someone who's running out of time. Her voice cracked. Stop talking like that. He looked at her for a long moment, then exhaled. All right. Then I'll tell you what I couldn't before. He reached into the drawer beside him and pulled out a small envelope. Inside was a photograph, faded, creased. It showed a young boy standing by a wrecked car, snow all around. That was me, he said quietly. The night of the crash that killed my parents. I was 16. I should have died too, but I didn't. My heart was damaged. They said I'd live, but not for long. Elena's breath caught. He continued, voice trembling. Since then, I've been living in borrowed time. I studied architecture, traveled, played piano when I could. But every time I got close to someone, I pulled away. Because I didn't want anyone to build a life around something temporary. Her eyes filled. And you think that's what I'm doing? He looked at her, pain flickering behind his smile. Aren't you? She shook her head, tears falling freely now. No, Adrian, I'm building it with you, not around you. He reached for her hand. Then promise me something. Anything. When I'm gone, don't stop painting. Don't close yourself off again. Don't say when, she whispered. Say if. He smiled weakly. You always were better with color than words. In the weeks that followed, their lives slowed to a rhythm of quiet mornings and long evenings. She brought her sketchbook to his bedside. He'd sit by the window, drawing buildings he'd never see finished. Cathedrals, bridges, rain-soaked streets. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they didn't need to. One evening, the sunset broke through the clouds for the first time in weeks. The hospital walls glowed gold, soft and surreal. Elena turned to him. When you get out of here, we'll go somewhere. Anywhere. Maybe the coast. He chuckled. You and your impossible plans. I'm serious, she said. You'll paint the sky. I'll paint the sea. He looked at her. Really looked. and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then promise me this, he said softly. When I can't walk anymore, you'll still go. For both of us. Her voice broke. You will walk. But in his eyes, she already saw the truth. Winter came early. Vienna turned white and silent. Adrian's condition worsened. Some mornings he could barely hold a pencil. Others, he'd wake before dawn, insisting on sketching until his fingers trembled. One night, Elena found him trying to stand by the window, gasping for air. She ran to him, caught him just before he fell. He smiled through the pain. Still raining, he whispered. Feels right. She pressed her forehead to his chest. Please don't leave me. He touched her cheek weakly. You already lost one person to the rain. Don't lose yourself to it too. And then, with a faint smile, the kind she'd first seen in the stairwell months ago, he whispered, Elena, thank you for making my borrowed time beautiful. His hand went still. The rain outside grew heavier. At his funeral, the city was drenched again. Elena stood beneath a black umbrella, clutching a single white rose. The river ran gray beside the cemetery. No one else was there. Just her, and the sound of rain. She placed the rose on his coffin and whispered, You once said we move with pain, so I'll move. But I'll take you with me. She turned away before her tears could fall again. Months later, she kept her promise. Elena left Vienna and traveled across Europe, painting, teaching, and carrying his sketches wherever she went. In Paris, she painted the sign under a pale moon. In Florence, she painted lovers under red umbrellas. In Prague, she painted the old bridges he'd once dreamed of rebuilding. Each canvas had rain in it, gentle, relentless, alive. And every time she exhibited her work, she signed them all the same way. Under the same rain one night, at an art show in Lisbon, an old man approached her. You paint sadness beautifully, he said. But it's not despair. It's memory. Elena smiled softly. That's what it is. Memory, and love that never really left. He nodded, then gestured toward one of her paintings. A figure standing at a window, looking out at the rain. Who is he? She stared at the canvas for a long time. Someone who taught me how to see color again. Years later, she returned to Vienna. The bookstore beneath her old apartment was still there. Older now, quieter. The city felt different, but the rain was the same. She climbed the narrow stairs to her old door. The apartment smelled of dust and old wood. She opened the window, and the cool breeze brushed her face. On the table lay something she hadn't seen before. A small package wrapped in brown paper. Her heart skipped. The landlady must have left it for her. She unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a notebook. Adrian's handwriting filled the first page. Elena, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't keep my promise. But I hope you kept yours. Don't cry for what ended. Paint what remained. And if you ever forget how to begin again, go stand in the rain. That's where we first met. Yours, always, Adrian. Her tears fell silently on the page, blurring the ink. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. She stepped into the street, no umbrella this time. The rain soaked her hair, her clothes, her sketchbook. And for the first time in years, she laughed, not out of joy, but out of relief. Out of remembering that even pain can be beautiful when it means you loved deeply enough to feel it. She closed her eyes and whispered, Under the same rain, we're still together. Years later, a journalist interviewing her for a magazine asked, Your paintings have a theme: rain, loss, love, time. Are they autobiographical? Elena smiled faintly. Maybe. Or maybe they're just reminders that some stories don't end. They just change form. He glanced at the painting behind her. 2 shadows, 1 umbrella. You've never sold this one, have you? She shook her head. No, that one isn't for sale. The journalist paused. Who's it for? She looked out the window where rain had just begun to fall, soft and endless. For someone who taught me that borrowed time is still time worth living. That night, when she locked her gallery and stepped outside, the city lights reflected off the wet pavement. She tilted her face to the sky and let the raindrops fall against her skin, cold, gentle, alive. Somewhere in the sound of the storm, she could almost hear him. A faint laugh, a whisper of piano keys. She smiled, whispered, I kept painting, Adrian, and walked on. A woman who had learned, at last, to move with the pain, not away from it.